The mama fish, swim if you can. And they swam all over the dam.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Lawrence Welk Show. Tonight's show has been especially selected for public television by Maestro Lawrence Welk. And now, here's your host.
Good evening. I'm Bob Warren, and I'm your guest host for this show. As some of you may know, I was the announcer for Lawrence Welk for 21 years, and they were very enjoyable years, believe me. The show you're going to see tonight was taped in 1972, and that was the year when there was a revival of 50s rock and roll music and of ragtime music. Remember Scott Joplin? And of the big band sounds of the 30s and 40s. Well, that was fine with me, because that was my kind of music. And, of course, it was fine with Lawrence, too, because he was a part of that wonderful era. And, as some of you may have guessed, that's the theme of tonight's show. So, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce the leader of the band, America's favorite music maker, Lawrence Welk.
Thank you. Folks, that's enough, folks. That's enough. Don't spoil me in my old age. Greetings, my friends, and welcome to this special show, Memories of the Big Band Days. It's very special to those of us who were a part of those wonderful days, and we think it will be quite special to all of you who danced to the great dance bands, listened to their recordings, and heard them on radio. We've enjoyed putting this show together, and I know you will enjoy sharing a few memories with us. Let's get started by paying tribute to the king of swing, Benny Goodman.
We meet, and the angels sing. The angels sing the sweetest song I ever heard. You speak, and the angels sing. Or am I breathing music into every word? Suddenly the setting is strange. I can see water and moonlight beaming. Silver waves that break on some undiscovered shore. Then suddenly I see it all change. Long winter nights with the candles gleaming. Through it all your face that I adore. You smile and the angels sing. And though it's just a gentle murmur at the start, we kiss. And the angels sing and leave their music ringing in my heart. We kiss, and the angels sing, and leave their music ringing in my heart.
And I'm sure Goodman fans remember Martha Tilton on vocal and the late Siggy Elman on trumpet on Benny's great recording of that song. Our good friend Les Brown survived the decline of the big bands thanks to the good judgment of a great comedian and a man who recognizes good music when he hears it, Bob Hope. Here's a song that Les Brown helped to make famous. Sandi and Sally sing it for you.
Gonna take a sentimental journey, gonna set my heart at ease, gonna make a sentimental journey to renew old memories. Got my bags, I got my reservation, spent each dime I could afford, like a child in wild anticipation, long to hear that all aboard. 7, that's the time we leave at 7. I'll be waiting up for heaven, counting every mile of railroad track that takes me back. Never thought my heart could be so yearning. Why did I decide to roam? Gotta take a sentimental journey, sentimental journey home, sentimental journey home, sentimental journey home.
And the girl singer with Les Brown on that recording is also still very active. Her name, Dorsey. Latin music had its place in the big band days. One of the top names in this field was Xavier Cugat. Here's a lively Latin tune featured by this band, and we have Bobby and Cissy dancing to Sway. experts in all kinds of dancing. A fine piano man, Carmen Cavallaro, was the leader of another well-known orchestra. One of his featured singers was our own Bob Lido. Carmen's theme song was Till the End of Time, based on a melody by Chopin. Now here's Bob Ralston playing his own arrangement of the song, and you will notice the cast on his left hand doesn't seem to be a handicap for Bob.
That song brought back some very special memories for me. I was the announcer for Carmen Cavallaro when he broadcast from the Astor Hotel in New York in 1948. That was one of the jobs I had when I was on staff at NBC in New York. It was a long way from my hometown of Plainview, Nebraska. You know, my life touched Lawrence's on 3 different occasions before I began announcing for him in Hollywood. The first time, I was a high school senior in Plainview, Nebraska. There I am on the basketball team. I was number 33. You know, we had a pretty good team that year. We went to the state finals in Lincoln. We won our first game, got beaten in the second by Jackson High. On that team was a fellow by the name of Buzz Knight. He went on later to quarterback for Nebraska in the 1941 Rose Bowl. Anyway, Lawrence had a very highly successful regional band at the time in 1937, and we all listened to him faithfully over WNAX in Yankton, South Dakota. And one day in 1938, the Welk band came to a ballroom in Randolph, Nebraska. That's not too far from Plainview. You couldn't get in the place. It was jammed to the rafters. He was as popular in the Middle West then as he was to become later on nationally. I have such a vivid memory of him that night, standing on the stage in front of his band, playing the accordion, just mesmerizing the audience with his big smile. He had great charisma even then, and a great band to dance to. Well, let's get back to the show and Lawrence.
Jimmy Dorsey and his band made history with their famous recording of the song Green Eyes. The singers were Bob Everly and Helen O'Connell. We're going to call on our wonderful husband and wife team, Guy and Ralna, for their version of this famous duet.
Your green eyes with the soft lights, your eyes that promise sweet nights, bring to my soul a longing, a thirst for love divine. In dreams I seem to hold you, to find you and enfold you. Our lips meet and our hearts too, with a thrill so sublime. Those cool and limpid green eyes, a pool wherein my love lies, so deep that in my searching more happiness I fear, that they will ever haunt me, or through my life they'll taunt me, but will they ever want me? Green eyes, I love you.
Soft lights and eyes that promise sweet nights brings to my soul a longing, a thirst for love divine. In dreams I seem to hold you, to find you and enfold you. Our lips meet and our hearts too, with a thrill so sublime. Those cool and limpid green eyes, a pool wherein my love lies, so deep that in my searching for happiness I fear that they will ever haunt me. All through my life they'll taunt me, but will they ever want me? Green eyes, I love you.
You know, Lawrence and I became pretty good golfing pals after I started announcing for him. That song, Green Eyes, kind of reminded me of how I fell on a couple of occasions because Lawrence was really a top-notch golfer. We played in a couple of pro-ams together. There we are at the Los Angeles Open. That's Mason Rudolph, the pro at the left, and then Randy Wood, who recorded many of Lawrence's albums, and then Lawrence and I. The Glenn Miller Band had a famous arrangement of the St. Louis Blues March during the glory days of the big bands. Here's the orchestra to play it for you, with Jack Immel and Johnny Klein featured on drums.
Johnny and the boys really swinging out. Well done, fellas. Paul Weidman was the real pioneer of the big dance bands. When his band was first organized around 1920, his featured trumpet man was Henry Buzzy, who later formed his own band. Norman Bailey recalls the Henry Buzzy solo on the Paul Weidman recording of When Day Is Done. Take it away, boys.
I mentioned that my life touched Lawrence's 3 times before I began working for him. The second time was in New York, when I was assigned to announce the Welk Orchestra broadcast from the Roosevelt Hotel. Guy Lombardo was a fixture there, except for the summer months. And that's when Lawrence and his orchestra filled in. Again, the place was jammed, and again, Lawrence's personality delighted the dancers. During the actual broadcast itself, Lawrence didn't talk. I introduced all the numbers, which was the custom in those days. But when the show went off the air, Lawrence was right back with his audience. You know, I think of the people who came to dance to the Lawrence Welk Band as one of all smiles, happy, laughing. Lawrence tried to make his audience feel as if they were at a party, having a good time. And I would say he succeeded. And here he is again.
If you folks remember the swing era, you'll surely remember the famous Artie Shaw Band and their wonderful arrangement of Begin the Beguine. And just to refresh your memory, we'd like to play it for you, featuring Peanuts' Hucko on clarinet and Russ Klein on tenor saxophone. Gentlemen, really swing out on it, huh? A 1 and 2 and... wonderful, boys. Thank you. Still a great arrangement. In the 30s, a fine band came out of San Francisco. The leader and the drummer was a man you folks all know. His name, Phil Harris. Here's Clay Hart singing a song long associated with Phil.
Come with me to Alabama. Let's go see my dear old Mary. She's frying eggs and broiling ham, and that's what I like about the South. She's got baked bread and candy jams, sugar-cured Virginia hams, a basement full of those berry jams, and that's what I like about the South. Oh, here's Ace. Ace. Take it, Neil. Hot cornbread and black-eyed peas, you can eat just what you please, cause they're never out of season. That's what I like about the South. Like it there, make no mistake, where your nerves are never shaky, you ought to taste her layer cakey, and that's what I like about the South. Take it, bud. You ever been down south, bud? It's out of sight to take. Way down where the king grows tall, way down where they say you all walk on in with that southern drawl, and that's what I like about the South. Where you see those pretty queens, where you dream those dreamy dreams, way down yonder in New Orleans, that's what I like about the South. Yo, that's what I like about the South. Woo. Yeah, boy.
Excellent, boys. Well, Phil Harris still keeps busy, but we see more of him on golf course than on the stage. And speaking of golf, our old friend Wayne King, who was our chief competitor when we played in Chicago, now gives us some competition on the golf course whenever I get to Phoenix. Wayne's most popular recording was Melody of Love, featuring a recitation by Franklin McCormick. For this number, we have a special treat for you. We call on a gentleman you don't see very often on camera, our very fine announcer, Bob Warren.
Why do I love you? I love you not only for what you are, but for what I am when I am with you. I love you not only for what you have made of yourself, but for what you are making of me. I love you for ignoring the possibilities of the fool in me and laying firm hold of the possibilities of the good in me. Why do I love you? I love you for closing your eyes to the discords in me and adding to the music in me with worshipful listening. I love you for helping me to make of the lumber of my life not a tavern, but a temple. In the words of my everyday, not a reproach, but a song. I love you because you have done more than any creed to make me happy. And you've done it without a word, without a touch, without a sign. You've done it just by being yourself. Perhaps, after all, that is what love means.
Sometimes people ask me how I happen to recite that piece on the show. Well, as Lawrence mentioned, Wayne King had a very successful recording with Franklin McCormick. So one day he asked me to try it because it fit the theme of the show, and I did, and it got a very nice reaction. And then something a little unusual happened. A local radio personality named Emperor Bob Hudson had a show over KGBS in Los Angeles, and he did a parody of my recitation in a kind of a, well, I guess you'd say a country bumpkin accent. He then played my version and his back-to-back on the station, and it got a terrific response. Lawrence heard it and decided to make a recording of the two of us on the same record. I must say it never made the Billboard charts, but it did get some play on jukeboxes around the country. Now, let's get back to the show and Lawrence.
The late band leader, Russ Morgan, besides playing very fine trombone and piano, was an outstanding songwriter. Here's one of his hit songs with Jimmy Roberts on the vocal.
La la.
of waiting for you. So tired of longing for you. And though I'm tired, I'll wait forever, dear. So tired of dreaming daydreams. So tired of only play schemes. Why don't you call me tonight, my dear? Tell me that your thoughts are all of me, sweetheart. All day long I wonder why we're far apart. So tired of dreaming of you. So tired of waiting for you. But though I'm tired, I'll wait forever, dear.
And we might mention our musical supervisor, George Case, was chief arranger for Russ Morgan. Tommy Dorsey, who played such beautiful trombone, had one of the top swing bands of his time. Tommy was also responsible for discovering and developing talented young performers. Among others, Frank Sinatra and Joe Stafford got their start with the Dorsey Band. One of this band's big recording hits was the original Boogie Woogie. Let's hear it again. Of music. There were also some outstanding small groups in the days of the big bands. One of these was the Three Sons. And here's our happy Norwegian, Myron Florin, with their theme song, Twilight Time.
that song brought back another pleasant memory. In 1950, I did the New Year's Eve broadcast from Times Square in New York for NBC. My wife, Madeline, was with me, and we waited in the Overseas Press Club, which overlooked Times Square. After the broadcast, she and I went across the street through the thousands of people to the Piccadilly Circus Lounge, where I announced the late-night broadcast of The Three Sons. One of the greatest big bands of all time was Duke Ellington. He was a legend even in those days. Lots of other bands tried to imitate him, but none of them could touch him, and he remained successful for over 50 years. Here's the orchestra to play one of his most famous recordings, Take the A-Train. And Arthur Duncan will dance it for you. I came to Hollywood in 1952 to announce those two with Pinky Lee and Martha Stewart and the Red Skelton Show. Later, I also announced the famous Ralph Edwards show, This Is Your Life. And that's where my life touched Lawrence's for the third time. I was there the night they surprised him. That was 1957. Lawrence thought he was doing a commercial for Dodge Motors and was a little more than irritated when they kept asking him to do it over and over again. Well, they were just stalling for time till Ralph Edwards arrived and said those famous words, Lawrence Welk, this is your life. It was quite a night. All the Welk family were there, and the Lennon sisters from the show. Lawrence was so touched he was nearly in tears. Another famous band leader, Ben Burney, held forth at the College Inn in Chicago during those golden big band years. He and Walter Winchell carried on a make-believe feud to the amusement of the audience. Ben himself became very famous for the way he sang his theme song, It's a Lonesome Old Town. Here's Ken Dilo to sing it for you.
Yowza, yowza, yowza. Greetings, all you guys and gals. It's the old maestro here from the Windy City coming at you and wishing you a very pleasant good evening. It's a lonesome old town when you're not around. I'm as lonely as I can be. I never knew how much I'd miss you, but now I can plainly see it's a lonesome old town when you're not around. How I wish you'd come back to me. Oh, I never knew how much I'd miss you, but now I can plainly see it's a lonesome old town when you're not around. How I wish you'd come back to me. Yowza, yowza, yowza. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I must admit I really don't remember anything about Ben Burney because he was a little before my time. In fact, all I know about the big band days is what I'm learning from this particular show. For example, I've been hearing about the Isham Jones band from George Thau, who George played with the Jones band before he went on to the Dorsey bands. George really got around, didn't he? Anyway, the Isham Jones band was a very popular band in the late 20s and the early 30s, and many songs that the band played was written by Isham himself. And here's a medley of two of his great songs played in champagne style. The first is I Can't Believe It's True. And the China Doll.
Was the theme song of the famous Casa Loma band headed by Glenn Gray. It was one of the finest precision bands of its day. The featured singer was Kenny Sargent, a man with a tremendous vocal range. Here is Joe Feeney to recall one of his big songs. Come in, Joe.
All right. I will gather stars out of the blue for you, I'll make a string of pearls out of the blue. For you, over the highway and over the street, carpets of clover I'll lay at your feet. Oh, there's nothing in this world I wouldn't do for you.
Quite arranged too. The orchestra of Vaughan Monroe was always in great demand for college dances, and the leader singing style became one of the most familiar and most copied of its time. See if this brings back some memories. Dick Dale, let's hear it.
Racing with the moon, high up in the midnight blue. And then all too soon, it's lost from view. Racing with the moon, that is what I'll always do. Till I overtake the moon and you.
Well, Dick sounded a whole lot like Vaughan Monroe, didn't he? Very talented mimic, as well as a singer and saxophone player. You know, introducing the Welk Show is just a part of my job. I also did the warm-up before the broadcast with Lawrence. And believe me, that was not a tough thing to do. The studio audience was already steamed with anticipation. Some of them had waited as long as 2 years for tickets to the show. Lawrence would come out and serenade the girls with his accordion, dance with a few of them. All in all, we did a pre-show that lasted about 40 minutes. And the charisma that was so evident when I first saw him in the 30s was as powerful as ever. You know, I've worked with many of the great entertainers of our day, Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra, Kate Smith, and not to take anything away from these performers, but I never saw anyone who could hold an audience like Lawrence. I think a part of his charm was that he was simply born with that extra magnetism bestowed on some people. And a part of it was his honest enjoyment in entertaining. He loved to be with them. And here he is again.
I'm sure many of you remember Kay Kaiser and his College of Musical Knowledge. It was a big hit on radio and television. Kay's band specialized in novelty numbers like this one with the lovely Gail Farrell and Mary Lou Metzger. Remember?
Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. Down in the meadow in a itty-bitty pool swam three little fishies and a mama fishy too. Swim, said the mama fishy, swim if you can. And they swam all over the dam. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. And they swam all over the dam. Stop, said the mama fish, or you will get lost. But the three little fishies didn't want to be bossed. The three little fishies went off on a spree, and they swam right out to the sea. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. And they swam all over the dam. Choo, boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. Help, cried the little fishies, look at all the whales. And quick as they could, they turned on their tails. And back to the pool in the meadow they swam. And they swam back over the dam. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. Boop, boop, dee-dum, da-dum, wa-dum, choo. And they swam all over the dam. They swam all over the dam. Boop.
over the years, Lawrence and I worked out a few little routines as we warmed up the audience. He used to kid me about singing. Well, actually, he was right on target about that. We were at a banquet one time when I was called upon to warble a few notes, and you can see by Lawrence's reaction there at the left just how he felt about it. That's Ted Lennon next to me, by the way. He's an uncle of the famous Lennon sisters and was executive vice president of Lawrence's company for many, many years. Now here's Lawrence again.
Ray Noble came to this country from England, rounded up some of the best musicians in the country, and built a wonderful, wonderful band with the help of Ray's own fine arrangement and some of his well-known original songs. Even if you never heard the Ray Noble Band, I'm sure all of you are familiar with this all-time favorite.
Good night, sweetheart. Till we meet tomorrow. Good night, sweetheart. Sleep will vanish so